Welcome to Love and Hustle. We share unfiltered stories of marriage, entrepreneurship, and scaling to seven figures without losing sight of what matters most.
The raw, the real, the sacrifices, and the lessons learned the hard way.
This is Love and Hustle. Hey guys, and welcome back to Love and Hustle. I'm Brittany, and this is the podcast where couples, companies, and chaos collide. And on today's episode, we have Marie Buck, who is based in California. I'm so excited for you guys to meet her. She's going to be sharing so much today on mindset and what it takes to grow and scale your business and push through the hard, uncomfortable stuff. So if that sounds like you, stay tuned. You're going to love this episode. Marie, can you just share a little bit about you, where you're based, what you shoot, all the things?
Yes. Hello. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Marie Buck. I live in Los Angeles, California. My studio specifically is in Burbank, California, and I am a newborn and family portrait photographer.
I love that. And then tell us a little bit about kind of your, story of how long you've been doing photography, when you pivot into this niche. Share with us more about that.
I've been doing photography for a really long time, but not always family and newborn. So I started probably 10 years ago now. The way I really started was I had done film photography and darkroom development in college. And then shortly after I graduated, my aunt was getting married and she was having a very small wedding and she asked me to photograph it. And I was like, I don't know. And so I sort of dove into everything digital photography to prepare for her wedding. And it really took off from there. And I started shooting headshots for actors in LA and professionals. And that was how it really all began. And it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe about 5 years later that I sort of pivoted and realized what I really loved was doing families and newborns.
Yeah, I love that. And I remember when I was coaching you, you were building out your studio. It was raw on the inside. You guys were doing full-blown construction, and then making this pivot into product sales at the same time. Do you feel like doing those two things simultaneous? Would you recommend that to somebody?
I think you just have to go all in. I don't know that there's a right or wrong way. I specifically signed up for LTL because of the studio. The studio came first and I was like, I need a path. I need a way to earn more. I knew that, prior to LTL, I was shoot and burn all inclusive. Mm-hmm. And I knew there was a cap. There was only so much I could do and I needed a plan. And taking LTL, I had a lot of mindset issues even around pivoting into product, but I knew I needed to try. And my husband was very supportive. He's an entrepreneur and he was like, you got to try, Yeah. He really gave me the confidence to give it a go. So I'm happy that it worked out the way it did because opening the studio with LTL from the get-go, I think was transformative. And if I had started with the studio without the value-based, pricing, I just think it would have been a little bit more of a hiccup. I did it all at once and that really worked for me.
I think, just from having watched people do it over the years, and obviously, there's a couple of girls just in the last few months whose studio they have expanded, but there's something about kind of going all in and going double down on yourself of hey, I'm gonna make this massive transformation, take on this huge responsibility, and also shift my entire business model. And while it seems really scary, I think that from the perspective of a client, the transition between the two of hey, there's now this new space, but with that is a new experience. And it feels like it's meant to happen together. Whereas when you move into the space and you operate that like that for many years, and then all of a sudden comes this new business model, it can be a little bit harder, I feel from a client moving through the process, returning clients. Yeah.
Yeah, when I had, when I have previous clients who've shot with me for years when I was all inclusive and I had to explain how I was changing everything, it really helps for me to be like, with the opening of my studio, this is
Yeah.
how I'm doing things now. Or now I have this other thing. We have this beautiful space that we can shoot in. It's, an upgrade in a lot of ways. We can do newborns in here. It doesn't have to all be in home. So it did help me explain to my clients, my older clients especially, this new transition. And I
Yeah.
do shoot a lot of families, not just newborns. Like it's pretty equal probably for me. And so because of that, I feel um, like with newborn, I don't know, for new clients and newborns, it's easier for me to just dive in. But when I'm bringing my old clients who I really didn't want to lose, it helped to have kind of a lot of change in a way for it to all make sense to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just so that we could maybe inspire someone in the audience who's operating in the shoot and burn model, can you share with us maybe what your average sale was then and what it is now?
My average sale was no more than 750, I would say, for a session. That's just like what it was. And I didn't do collections or anything. It was just all inclusive shoot and burn. Now, I would say my average sale is probably 2000.
That's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
exciting. I love your work too. Like every time I look at your work, it's so colorful and like the tones are like so true to life. And yeah, I love seeing like the transformation you've gone through.
Thank you
Okay,
so much. I will say also
so
transitioning from shoot and burn to LTL or value based has, I actually think it's made my work, improved my work because it's not just like, oh, I'm shooting this gallery and I'm sending it. And yeah, there's a lot of gems in there. Like I'm so intentional because I have this goal of, creating lasting artwork for people. And so it's taken like what I already was good at and I think actually has improved it.
that's awesome. I do think that something for those in the audience listening who've never experienced the working in a product based business and going through the process of showing your clients their images after their session, you get critiqued, which I think
Mhm.
initially when your clients are reviewing their photos, they're speaking out loud things that they like or didn't like. And, you're starting to design gallery walls and albums and you're starting to see what works better in these formats. And you as an artist get like new perspective of like, how you can be more intentional for the client at the next session because you got to hear what they loved the most, whether that be candids or like, more of like the scenic shots with like seeing the entire, landscape with it, or the clients that really love the detail shots. And so there's so much benefit, I feel like, because you learn how to be more intentional for the client, you learn how to be more intentional for the product, and your work as a whole just improves. And that's something when you're in the space of just sending a gallery and not knowing really what the client thought, or I see these photographers who, like the little memes and stuff that go out on the internet, and they're like, I sent a gallery wall and then it's like crickets or whatever, and they're just
Yeah.
like on the edge of their seat. Like, did the client like it? And I just can't imagine living in that world of not knowing how you did is got to be taxing on your mental.
I used to, like, if I didn't hear back, I used to just hope, like, no news is good news. And usually it
Yeah.
was, but like, who knows?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. For sure. Well, so one of the things I wanted to talk about today, and something that you shared with me leading into this podcast, was talking about mindset and the mindset shifts that you have to make in order to grow a business and to move into a business model that's completely new for you. Share with the listeners a little bit about like where your biggest mindset struggles were.
I think, and this, I don't really know where this comes from other than I think I have a very much of like an artist mindset, which is that because I love what I do and because I feel so lucky to do it, that it held me back from charging what I deserve to be charged just
Hmm.
because I like it so much, because I felt lucky and excited to do the work. It it felt like I was already winning in a way, getting to do it. But that's not sustainable long term. I mean, you will burn out that way. And also, I want more for my life and my family. So just because I get to do this job and I like it doesn't mean that um, I can't charge a livable wage.
Yeah.
And that was just, I don't know, something I had to, I couldn't come to it overnight. I had to go through LTL, and then to be honest, I still do that work. Like I'm constantly doing that mindset work. Like I'm still not exactly where I want to be, but I'm inching toward it,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I will get there, and I'm
Yeah.
way further than I was. But it is very ongoing for me, and having other photographers who do what I do in my corner and who I talk to on a regular basis, who believe in me and motivate me. Um, I mean, it's essential for me.
Yeah. So, in the sense of like mindset, because I do agree, it's ongoing. Was there something that happened, throughout this transition that really like helped you to see more of that like livable wage and more of like what success looked like on paper, right? From a numbers perspective, was there something for you or like that just like a light bulb went off and you were just like, yeah, this is where I need to be?
I think once I started doing sales appointments, ordering
Yeah.
appointments, I mean, I was scared up until I did it, but I just kept going, like putting one foot in front of the other. Investing in LTL helped me. I felt like, okay, I've spent this money, I've learned this, I've got to at
Mhm.
least try. But I had to leap before I was ready. I remember being
Yes.
so nervous doing my first consultation call and my first ordering appointment. Like, I remember my cheeks like feeling really flushed when they were
Hmm.
like, "Oh yeah, let's do this and this and this," and inside being like, oh my gosh, they're gonna buy our work. We're gonna do our work.
Yeah.
Um, and but I think honestly, my first ordering appointment, I can't remember what it was, but I think it was frames. I think they
Hmm.
purchased frames, and something shifted in me. They were so excited. I was
Yeah.
providing a level of service that they wanted. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, I was the one holding myself back. I was creating limitation. I was, you know, um, there's something you say, I can't remember the exact like phrasing, but, like, don't, something about their wallet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't tell them what they want to spend. Like, just present
Yeah.
the options.
Don't assume a budget that's not yours.
Yes. And I was assuming everyone was me when I had my first baby, which wasn't my ideal client then. And I had to dive in. I had to try before I could shift.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the biggest things, and there's so much amazing education out there, but there's not a whole lot of like talk about mindset and that that push that you have to make, and it's always ongoing. I think sometimes too, even we get in these ruts, and I hope the people listening who experience this, it's like you get into these ruts sometimes where like you just feel like you haven't had great sales, or you feel like every time you've done a consultation call, it's just been like no's. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that I think is so important is that that's really natural. Like we go through these ebbs and flows and these ups and downs. And sometimes things are great. And then sometimes you're just like, man, what am I doing wrong? Do I need like to refresh myself? And I think as an educator, the part that when you are in those lower points,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have people to ground you, to like bring you down and say, okay, don't just like throw in the towel because we're in this like difficult space. Like, stay the course. This is natural. Like, and almost kind of like talk you out of these like lower places
Mm-hmm.
is so 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 important, because this business model is not easy. There are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like hiccups you experience along the way, a lot of learning lessons, a lot of tweaks to your policies and your process,
Yeah.
because it is so new and there are so many important layers that go to it. And I think so often, like I've heard even from my students, like I tried in-person sales one time and I had this horrible experience and I just quit,
Yeah.
or I just couldn't seem to get, you know, like I couldn't seem to convert people on consultation calls and I just never moved forward. And it's hard because you have to look at the spaces, like these individual things that are happening. Like, okay, it's not just that you're in these consultation calls and saying like stepping back and saying, okay, like what can I refine? Who can give me feedback? What am I missing? Right. And there's always
Mhm.
this like constant refinement. And even now, I will tell you that like we are moving into a shift in generations. So I
Mhm.
actually am in the process of hiring somebody in marketing, and one of the marketing people listed out everything about Gen Z. And so by 2028, over 70% of the first time moms will be Gen Z.
So
And
crazy.
so we collect, like we as a business are saying, how do we evolve? And there's a
Right.
part of this that I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know what's next for us. And it's always like you said, it's like your mindset, like those changes, that growth. It's almost like you have to realize that you're going to go through ups and downs and changes and it never goes away.
No.
And the quicker you get comfortable with kind of being uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's like having a baby. Like as soon as you get them to sleep, they go through a new phase. Like you're out of that phase, that whole first
Yep.
year of having a baby. It's like, okay, great. We finally figured out like this schedule. Oh, change. We finally
Yep.
figured out this. Oh, change. As soon as you get it, you have relief for like a few days and then we're into something new.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
And
how this business is.
yeah, and I would say it's really just the industry as a whole. I don't even think
Yeah.
that it's like specifically product-based photographers that
No.
experiences. I think it's just the industry as a whole, and you throw in like the shifts of the economy and where you live, and it's just always changing. And but when we chatted a little bit before getting on this, you shared with me a little bit about your pod. And can you just tell those who are listening what you guys do as a pod to support each other?
Shout out to my pod. They are like the most important part of my day a lot of the time. There's with me four of us who are still together from, our class with
Yes.
you. And I mean, we talk about it all. We've become so close at this point. But I mean, I probably hop on there before almost every shoot and after every ordering appointment just to report back with what's happening, and they do the same. We talk about everything from wall design to like I'm having, this client feedback or issue. We really talk about everything. And early on in our pod, after, completing LTL, so much of it was like we were all in different places. Shout out Bree. She was like had dived in during LTL, like she transitioned during the class. I had to really redo my website, and so I started a little bit later. We were all just in different places, but a huge part of just having that community is troubleshooting and celebrating each other's wins. The amount of pep talks they've given me to get me through, I mean, I couldn't even count them all. So many. 2 years of pep talks. And then I give it back. And it gives me confidence too to hear their issues and be able to coach them through it in the way they've coached me. Like, it's like when you go through a breakup
Yeah.
and if it was your friend and they had been treated badly by a partner, you would
Uh,
be like, you deserve so much more. But when it's you and you're in it, you can't tell yourself that. You need to hear it
yeah.
from them. And it's the same thing with clients or how we're going to structure Santa this year, or, it's huge. And it's just a really big shift. I didn't have anything like that prior to LTL. I was
Yeah.
very alone in my entrepreneurship, and it feels like they're my colleagues, even though we're all doing our own business. We have each other to
Yeah.
bounce everything off of.
I love that. The whole reason when I originally started LTL, they were much smaller, I guess like cohorts.
Hmm.
And I would pair people up and I called it exit buddies. And you had an exit buddy. But then I actually started to realize that one year I asked like I just had an uneven number and there needed to be more people. And I started to see how that dynamic worked with three people. And then I was like, you know what? Let's do groups of three and four. And then it turned into groups of four and five because I started
Hmm.
realizing that sometimes you have a person who's like going through shifts, like I know one of your pod mates had a baby and that's like
Hmm.
huge. Like you didn't
Yeah.
implement this early because of the shifts that you were doing with your website and your studio storefront. So
Hmm.
and so it's really helpful to have people who are kind of like running the same marathon as you, but they're at different points. Like some of them are ahead, some of them are behind. And I remember the uh, the OG LTL group. There was one person in particular who was going to have to relocate their entire business to another state. She was going to have to completely start over, build a whole new. And I really believe deep down that how she was able to make that shift 2.5 years later after the program, because she almost just kind of put her business on autopilot while they
Yeah.
relocated, got reestablished, and but I really feel like it was her pod mates that were, in the same marathon but already getting the wins that it was like when I get to this new location, I'm going to, lace up and run with them, and that's so
Yeah.
crucial.
And I
But
would say, like, if you haven't taken LTL, but you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't have a pod, you can find a pod. And I think that's my own issue prior, that I didn't have one to some degree. Like, I don't know, maybe you feel there's a level of competition with someone who's doing something in your area, or you feel, or you're afraid they'll feel competitive if you reach out to them, or you're not doing exactly the same thing. I mean, specifically for me, the fact that my pod, we all run a similar, artwork focused business model is very helpful. But
yeah,
even just having, all photographers deal with clients, all
yeah,
photographers have similarities, and I wish I had found that earlier. It's just so helpful.
it
And
is.
it makes you feel less alone, and helps you build confidence, especially if you're trying to do a big shift like I was.
Yes. Yeah. The other thing too, and this is just from somebody who, has spent, gosh, I think, so I started LTL in 2020. So, but what I've really found is that what you're saying, like what you're mentioning, there definitely has to be a give and take. And I think a lot of times people show up and they'll ask questions, but then they don't come back to help others.
Hmm.
And from having been in my own programs myself, you have to give as much as you take. And, I think sometimes, and I really feel like too, as a coach, I try to really create that space of like we come here and we support each other and we show up and answer each other's questions. Um, and that we don't just show up, ask our questions, and then leave, and then you don't hear from us again until we have a problem, and creating that like you get what you give, right? And making sure that you create and really foster an environment that allows people to actually grow
Yeah.
and to say the hard things. I joke I joined a group coaching program many years before I started coaching, and I met my best friend in that
Mhm.
program. And I joke that I like paid $5,000 to find my best friend,
Yeah.
but like the thing that's so great is that like we support each other and like I call her and she calls me and there's been times where she'll call me out and she's like, I don't understand why you're creating a solution to a problem that's not even actually happening yet, And you're
Yeah.
like, okay, noted, good friend. Like that's a good friend. That's a good
Totally.
pod mate.
Yeah.
Somebody who gives you that honest and like true feedback that you need as a business owner, and to keep you kind of like in check, but then also to be like your cheerleader when things get hard or things are
Yeah.
just not
And
gumdrops and roses.
you learn so much too through their, like when you're giving the
Yes.
feedback, that's often when I'll have realizations, or I'll be like, oh yeah, like that has happened to me, or I'll come across it in the future, and having talked through it helps me. I mean, you really learn so much by showing up for other people too, even if
Yeah.
you don't realize it in the moment. Long term, it's incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I love it. I mean, I think I really just like love this business, even though
Yeah.
it's hard. And sometimes I'm like, "Ugh, I want to throw in the towel. Um, but I think it's
That's everyone. Like everyone's like that was the most relatable quote of the whole thing. Oh, I just want to throw in the towel.
absolutely. I mean, of course, that happens all the time, weekly. But then you have these exciting wins, and I really like, especially with my pod, like their wins are my wins. Like it, when they have a great sale or a great session or something shifts in their business, I'm like, if it's possible for them, it's possible for me.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I might be in a low or not be getting a lot of leads or whatever, but if they're doing well, it's
Hmm.
almost like, okay, well, that's coming back around to me because we're in this together and we're learning from each other and we're doing things similarly. And that really does help my mindset as well. I mean, and sometimes we're in the same place, right? We were just talking the other day about how leads are kind of lower than usual. And it makes you feel good to be like, okay, well, they're in it too, or this or that, or
Yeah.
what can we do? Um, so you have that camaraderie, but you
Hmm.
also, like, when they're having success, it's like, well, that's possible. So, you know, that's
And
why
I
I want
love
to.
to, yeah, and I love too when you've really been creating, this support system long enough that you'll have friends that'll like re-ground you of like, don't you remember it was just 3 weeks ago that you X, Y, and Z and these great things happened to you. And you're like, yeah, I guess like you're right. Like I'm just kind of like wallowing in the hardness of the situation.
Yeah.
And they remind you like a couple weeks ago, you were just sharing all these amazing things. And that's so awesome to have too. Um, so it sounds like the pod has like kept you going, but just so
Mhm.
that people can maybe um just relate to you more. Can you share like where a season where things have felt like really hard for you?
Mhm.
Maybe in the transition, was there like a specific point of the process of moving from all inclusive into a product driven business? Was there a time that just felt challenging? Or just really even just in this season of your business because you have been doing this for so long.
I think, well, it's easier for me to think, I think about the transition. Um, there are two, like, very specific things that came to mind. One was, losing a client I loved who I thought would transition with me from shoot and burn to this model.
Hmm.
And, seeing them hire a different photographer and just feeling like, oh, that's hard.
Yeah.
Having my pod and also just the language and what you taught us in LTL of like the ideal client and being able to let them go and just, I don't know, just having acceptance that with change comes some loss, but there's going to
Yeah.
be growth on the other side. And I can look back now and reflect on that. But at the time, I just remember that client specifically feeling really sad about it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe I should just go back for her and do all inclusive, like maybe I should just change it. And to be honest, at the time, I'm actually shocked I didn't. Probably my pod was like, no, don't do that. You're moving forward. Um,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest, that's probably what happened because at the time I felt vulnerable and I didn't want to lose her. But in hindsight, I think it was the right move for me. And interestingly, that client, they haven't come back to me, but they've referred quite a lot of clients to me.
Yeah.
So I know I didn't burn the bridge. Maybe they're not the ideal client for me, but they still think positively and they've seen everything I've been doing and, they are still referring me.
Mhm.
So there's a win there. And then, there was a time when I had an ordering appointment, and then the next day the client called me and was like, my husband basically, doesn't want to do the artwork or whatever.
Yeah, kibosh the sale.
Yeah. And of course, once you've been doing this long enough, you realize that's going to happen now and then, and you can put things in
Yep.
place to help it or whatever. And I was able to salvage some of it. I still sold them a frame. It just wasn't like the gallery wall we had originally planned on or whatever. And I just remember feeling like so defeated. Once we actually ended up doing a frame, I felt better. But initially, we weren't going to do any artwork, or that's what
Yeah.
she had said. And I felt so like defeated by it. And that was a real transition or growth moment for me, because I wasn't charging for my digitals what I wanted to be. So I think that was part of what the loss there was in that sale. But that pushed me. I was like, that's not going to happen to me again. Because even if
Yeah.
someone came to me and they said, I'm not going to do artwork, I'm just going to do digitals, I would be okay with
Yeah.
that, because I'm okay with where I have things. And I'm still working on that, to be honest.
Hmm.
My pod has given me a lot of encouragement there, just being able to shift my prices as the years go on. It's always hard for me. Like once I do it and I commit, I don't really look back, but making the change is hard. And that's where, I've had growth, but where I'm still working on it.
Yeah. I will say, I think the part about losing clients is really hard, and it's so relatable because I've been there too. And I sometimes don't think clients understand how much it impacts us. If I had to
Mhm.
guess, I think that that soul that soul process of watching someone go to another photographer, maybe the client didn't say anything to you before they did that, or whatever, didn't even reach out to you to even know that you've raised your prices or that you've changed your process. It's it's hard for any
Mhm.
photographer, especially when you like really deeply care for a family,
Yeah.
and you've photographed them and you've been a part of like really important moments in their lives. And so, yes, I completely agree with you. And it's hard. I have a client who I worked with for many years. And I did a photo session. I photographed both boys' full collective memberships. Then we started to do annual family photos. I photographed her parents as well as his parents. And then like 1 year we just never heard from her. And it was odd. It was like maybe they moved, like trying to look her up on Instagram, trying to look her up on
Mhm.
Facebook. And to this day I have no idea what happened. And it's funny, I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, I just don't feel closure with this client
Yeah.
because I don't it wasn't, I don't think it was ever like about money or our process because she
Mhm.
always invested in the finished, and so I actually had a client who works in the same hospital and department, and I was like, "Oh, do you know so and so?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." And I was like, "Gosh, so she's still in Tampa, And I'm just like, but yeah, it's slightly like almost like grieving a loss of it. And
Yeah.
I don't think clients realize that we experience that. They think we just move through the motions, but that we as photographers do have like deeply rooted emotions tied to our clients and emotional investment in them,
Yeah.
in their family, and their story. And like it hurts for sure. But
Mhm.
I will say that when you do make the transition, for those who are listening and do fear that, you gain just a completely new level of client, I feel, and the relationships are even deeper and more meaningful because now it's not just about taking pretty photos and documenting this milestone. It's about creating something tangible. It's about, building a legacy that they'll leave for their children. It becomes about this much deeper purpose to what it is we do and what we create. And I think that when people understand the value of that and come into your business for those deeper, meaningful parts of what you do, it's like their investment in you and your business and what you create is so much more intentional and equally deep within them. And so it's like the ones you gain like far outweigh the ones you lose, but it never changes the fact that it still sucks. It still
Absolutely.
hurts. Yeah,
Two
it
things
still
can be
hurts.
true, right? Like You can
Yes.
mourn the clients you lose, and you can feel so happy that it opened the doors to probably clients you never even would have gotten without the transition. So, yeah, but I don't know. It goes back a little bit to what I was talking about. Like, if you really love the work and you really love the people, that can sometimes be one of the biggest hurdles in terms of mindset in moving forward because you feel emotionally attached. It's not just numbers in what we do. I
Yeah.
sometimes think about like commercial photography, like you shoot something and they buy a usage fee for it or whatever for however long they're going to use it, and then it's just going to disappear. We are hopefully creating imagery and artwork that's going to last their lifetime and be passed down to generations.
Yeah.
There's something very deep about it. We're very attached. It's not just work. Not that
Yeah.
I'm saying commercial photography doesn't have like a lot of heart to it. It does. And I have photographer friends who are
Yeah.
commercial photographers who care so deeply in their art. But I don't think, well, if something's being made for advertising, it doesn't have the lasting effect
Yeah.
that, family does.
Yeah, family does. And I think it's like it can feel more transactional,
Mm-hmm.
a more transaction based relationship versus I think when you have layers to your business that are documenting, life-changing moments in people's lives and then creating something tangible so that that's remembered forever. Like that is so much more than a transaction and that is what is so beautiful about it and why I just like deep down in like the like depths of my soul, I want every photographer to experience that. I want every
Yeah.
photographer to like not just the experience of documenting the moment for someone, but what it means to create something that will last forever, that will literally be passed down, that will literally be enjoyed every day. I had a client send me a video. Their husband is travels a lot for work and is gone for extended periods of time, and their toddler says goodnight to him every night when they walk up their stairs, looking at
So
these photos, and says night night, daddy, and then says night night to all the other people in the photos too. But it's just really really special, and to think, gosh, what a core memory for this child to to have this photo, and that's how they remember when their dad was away, but how important that tangible piece of artwork was. And to be able to give that to a family and to like provide that for that child and is just really special. So okay, so what is advice that you would give someone who's really trying to grow right now? If you could give them one piece of advice for somebody who's listening, who's kind of like maybe shares in some of the experiences that the ups and the downs that we've gone through here, but they haven't reached that level of like success. What's one piece of advice that you would give someone that is trying to grow their business right now and move into selling products?
I think finding a coach and a community
Yeah.
that pushes you beyond where you're ready. For anyone listening to what I'm saying and what we were just talking about, like this is not where I was 2 years ago from a
Hmm.
mindset point of view.
Yeah.
And like everything you were just talking about, walking up the stairs, having these like moments, like I relate to that so much. But 2 years ago, like I wasn't there. I didn't understand it in the way you're saying, like I want every photographer to have this experience. I hadn't had that experience and I couldn't even really picture it,
Yeah.
and I kind of leaped before I was like fully mentally there. And so yeah, I would say finding someone who's a little bit ahead of you, whether that means a coach and signing up for a course or a photographer who's willing to, they don't even have to necessarily mentor you, although you could find someone to mentor you, but just
Yeah.
someone who keeps you accountable and pushes you along and can almost see for you that you need more. And that could be your partner too. I mean, there's so many people in your life who could be that person for you, but I do think having someone who knows the photography space
Yeah.
can be really, really helpful.
Yeah. Before I actually ever took any formal education, I actually reached out to a girl who is selling products, and I just asked her, I was just like, gosh, like it seems like this is really great. Like, can you tell me, can you share with me? And I remember she got on a call with me for about like an hour or two, and I got just enough nuggets to maybe piece something together myself, which
Yeah.
ultimately later on I ended up investing in a program and realizing how much time I wasted trying to piece it together myself.
Yes. Yeah.
But to this day we still follow each other and like support each other, but it's just wild to think that like she never like formally taught. She was never really an educator or anything, but she was just like, I know that this changed my life, and I'll give you a couple of nuggets to, send you on your way and give you the hope in the transition and maybe the courage to take the leap. I will say that community is so hard to find, and
Yeah.
it's definitely something that I hate being like you have to like pay to find it, but sometimes it does require like to find yourself at the right table with the right people who are going in the same direction as you. I think a lot of times these Facebook groups and larger communities, there's a lot of people who want similar things, but their core values, their belief system, their, approach and structure to their business is so different that it can be really hard to sift through the noise. I think a lot of times
Hmm.
these Facebook groups have a lot of noise, and they're very distracting because you'll see someone who's getting a lot of wins, but they're getting wins in a business model that's so different from yours. And what they're doing can't necessarily be applied into yours. And so I feel like you have to be really selective in the tables you sit at and the advice you take. And that's one thing about LTL, like I put together these pods, and little did I know when I did it, I was more doing it because I was one person. I still had a
Right.
business that I needed to run, and I needed people to not cling to me after the program. I
Yeah.
needed people to have their peers and to have like essentially their mastermind sisters to like continue on. And but I had no idea just how foundationally important it was to the success beyond the program.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of coaches want to, not create, they want to keep people needing them. They want to keep,
Right.
and I probably can sit here and I probably have coaches be like, Brittany, don't say that. Like you want to have people need you because that's important to like your ecosystem of like your education. But for me, just like knowing how important and instrumental it is to longevity and like pushing through the hard times, it's like for me watching it and hearing it from you firsthand is just amazing. And I love it to like watch from the outside of you guys. And I love when people okay, so here's the question. Have you met
Mhm.
anyone in your pod?
No. Allie and I almost met. We were like ships in the night.
Oh my gosh.
But no, and we talk about it all the time. Like if I saw them, uh, it wouldn't feel like the first time meeting them. Like
Yeah.
definitely, Ellie and Lisa both live in the Atlanta area, and they see each other all the time. We become really good friends, so they do see each other. But me and Bree, no. Um, but we will. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
We all have little kids, and I live so far, but eventually we will for sure. I was gonna
Yeah.
say one thing when you were saying like, oh, another coach would be like, oh, Brittany, don't say that. I would actually say having my pod has kept me closer to you and needing you in a
Oh,
way
yeah.
because I probably would have not implemented without them. I don't
Yeah.
know if I would have gone the distance to get where I am. And because I've implemented, artwork and the LTL, um, I still like look to you and come back to you, and you know, you post things sometimes in our LTL alumni group that are so
Yeah.
valuable and give advice. And but if I wasn't doing this model, I wouldn't need you in
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
way. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be looking
Yeah.
to you
Yeah.
in the same way. So
It
I
is.
actually think it's very valuable.
Yeah, the structure is really unique, and sometimes it's funny because when I hosted the intensive, I got to have an inside look on some. I remember we were doing hot seats, And all of a sudden, everybody was talking about their digital image pricing and how that was structured. And I realized I was like, oh my gosh, like y'all have kind of strayed away from this. Like, how did we get so? And you know how sometimes you work on something for so long that you almost like stop, like you lose the plot, right? Like you lose the plot and you just have tweaked and then finally, and that's actually something that I found so interesting, and I'm why I actually have a coach who's helping me to like reground the content and reground people, and more will be coming for that for some of the alumni to just help like recenter and reground ourselves in how it works and why it works the way it does. And I did post a training, and I shared
I
a
watched
video
it. Yeah.
in the alumni group because I realized that people had lost the plot and they were getting so sidetracked, which is so easy to do in our business.
Yeah. Yeah.
To get so sidetracked on like these pieces that you almost forget that all of these things work in conjunction with each other. And if one piece of it is out of alignment, it will offset a result to another space. And then you're like, wait, no wonder why this isn't working. And so, yeah, I do try to like reground people. I try to do that training. And then of course, I, obviously answer questions in the free group, but there's lots of continued support now that I have built a team. I'm really excited
Hmm.
to be able to give more to my students. And I actually just hired a fractional CMO who's going to be doing all of my marketing for me. So now I'm even more available to my students. I can't wait for all of that to come to surface. So,
That's amazing.
but yeah, and I think it's
I was
really
like,
important too to like have people who are living and breathing the business with you and the ebbs and flows of the economy because it is something that shifts so regularly, and we have to have people who are in it with us and who can speak to what they're feeling and like having that pulse, you know what I mean? That pulse within the space is huge.
yeah, because I've leveled up, right, from before LTL to after LTL, but there's still a lot of leveling up to do. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not exactly this is I haven't hit the ceiling of where I want to be,
Yeah.
and to have other businesses to look to, whether it's my pod or you or people in the alumni who are doing
Yeah.
that, motivates me, because it's a whole new mindset shift to like make the next leap. Like I've done so much work to get here, but I have a lot of work to do to get there. Whether it's raising prices, building a team, like whatever it is that I want to do to expand.
Yeah.
But it's very motivating when you know there's not a cap, but it's
Hmm.
still scary.
Yeah. I will say, and that's like one of the beautiful things too, is like this past year, we as a studio, we didn't raise our prices. We actually didn't shoot more sessions, but we did significantly more in revenue. And we stepped back and we were like, okay, what was that? Like
Yeah,
what allowed that to happen? And I think our new space had a lot to do with that. I think the caliber of studio when you walk in, the way it feels,
right.
we really leveled up from where I was before. I was in that tiny little shoebox studio, but that's like one of the things that's so cool is to be like, wow, we're still growing, even though we didn't technically grow. We're still growing. Like we didn't grow on volume, but we grew, internally as a team through what we were able to create for our clients. And that's
Yeah.
really, really awesome.
I saw
But
that this past year too, for me. Like, I had a really busy fall, like I always do, but I didn't add sessions, but I made a lot more.
yeah,
And it was dramatic. And I couldn't even
yeah,
when I was in it, I don't even think I was like fully aware. It wasn't until the end of
yes,
the year, and also
yep.
even the beginning of this year when I had all of my installs because,
Hmm.
they were all at the end of last year, so I wasn't installing them till the beginning of this year. And when I was like, "Oh, I have so many installs I have to do." It really made me realize like how much work I had done and grown the year before.
Yeah. And sometimes too, I think that's why I like love data because sometimes I think the way something feels versus the reality that it actually was
Yeah.
is so important because sometimes you kind of like beat yourself up and then you step back and you're like, oh, we're actually doing really good. And I
Yeah.
remember this past July last year, like our bookings kind of sucked. Like honestly, they were just like
Yeah.
we were like, man, are we like in a rut? Did we like miss did we miss the mark somewhere? We were just like, wow, the numbers are not good. And then I stepped back and I met with my bookkeeper, and he's like, you realize that your July brought as much revenue as like your busiest month of the entire year, the previous year, your slowest month of this year actually broke that.
Yeah.
And we're stepping back, and then we started to say, are we actually better at selling and serving our clients when there's fewer sessions? Like were
Probably.
we able to be more intentional? Were we able to be more like focused on these individual sessions because there wasn't as much movement in the business. There wasn't as many clients coming through. And so yeah, but I love a good spreadsheet with some data on it to really tell you what you
That
need.
it shows you have to make changes or make cuts. I was just having this conversation with my husband. Like we talk so much about small business and
Mhm.
everything is so nuanced because it is small and this and that, but it's happening on like huge levels too. Like we live in
Yeah.
Burbank, which is
Mhm.
where Disney is. And we constantly are hearing about Disney laying off this executive and this whole team. And what you think about Disney, like they're so successful, like what
Yeah.
could be going wrong year to year? Like we're
Yeah.
all invested in Disney, right?
Yeah.
But they are constantly making shifts too, like, and
Yes.
having to cut things based on their revenue.
Yeah.
And whenever I think about that, it just like makes me feel better. I'm just one person, but
Yeah.
they're a huge team and they have to do it too.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you see businesses like re-strategizing or running a new like campaign, and you're like, whoa, didn't see that coming from this brand. But then you're over there saying there are people behind that brand, just like there's people behind ours, and they're trying to make shifts and adapt to the changes that they feel in the market just like we do. I just think that sometimes it feels so much bigger to us because we are so small. But yeah, you're so right. It's like even Disney has their own set of problems. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, well, thank you so much, Marie, for having us on. Before you hop off, I want to give you a couple of rapid fire
Okay.
questions. Number one, studio or outdoor?
Ugh. I think right now studio, which is crazy for me to say.
Okay. Um, frames or albums?
Ugh. I truly cannot choose. I think frames. Okay. I'll say frames only because I do think you get to enjoy them every single day.
Yep.
Even though I think like albums have the longevity in a way, in a very special way.
I
But I'll
love
say
that.
frames, I guess. It's tough.
Yes. Okay, so if we could manifest a dream session for you right now, like if we could speak it into existence and maybe one of your clients potentially is listening, what would it be?
Mhm. Like in terms of creative
Yeah,
or like
like a
okay.
particular location or like styling, or maybe you do like, um, you know, just like if you could dream up something, what would it be?
I would want to shoot. Oh, I know. I would want to do a travel session. I would want to travel with a family on vacation to a place that's really special to them and
Uh-huh.
do like an epic shoot there, whether that was like in Hawaii or I don't know, like their vacation home they always go to. I'd want to travel with them and do like maybe even like a multi session shoot there, where I'm like picturing my family used to go to the Outer Banks, so we would rent this house in the Outer Banks. Like I would want to do like a mix of day in the life of like all the
Yeah,
things we do there, very casual, but then do like an epic styled where everyone's dressed up session at like sunset.
that sounds amazing. I hope this happens for you. That sounds
Yeah.
incredible. Um, and then if you could describe your brand in only one word, what would it be?
Hmm. Hmm. It's tough. Um, I don't know if this is the right word, but it's close to something like nostalgic. Like
Okay.
these are the images that capture the memories that mean everything to you in your life. So
Yeah.
sometimes I have a feeling of nostalgia in a moment with my kids. Like I'm already missing it even though we're in it
Yeah.
because I know I'm like loving the moment and I'm like, or I'm loving like something they did or something they did reminds me of something from when they were younger.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I'll see an image of them that gives me such nostalgia for that time.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's what I would say. Yeah, nostalgia.
I love that. It's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for having it. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, cut. Let's rewind that. Um, well, Marie, thank you for so much for joining us here and sharing so much wisdom with us and being just so raw and open. And that is what I hope for this podcast. And just your generosity and your open heart has been amazing to have here. I hope people felt inspired by what they heard today and of course walked away with little pieces that they can move forward in their own business. Finding their own pod and their own person to keep them accountable like you have has been amazing and inspiring. Tell us really quick where we can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Marie Buck Photography or my website, mariebuckphotography.com. And thank you so much for having me. I just want to say, like, honestly, I said this to you before I even came on that I had like a little bit of imposter syndrome. And I just want to say, like, it it's possible. Like, you can grow and you can get beyond where you were. I'm living proof of it. And I know it seems like if you looked at it now, like I have it all together or I
Yeah.
got here overnight, but I didn't. And there was growth. And yeah, find your people.
Yeah. And you've done hard work. I remember when I was on your first strategy call, I was like, oh, girl. And you're like, yeah, and I'm going to be opening this studio, by the way, and I'm going to be doing construction. And I was like, whoo, all right. I was like, put on your put on your running shoes. Like we got a lot of work to get done, and you've done it, and it's been really inspiring to watch. And everybody, go follow Marie, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.